It's 5:30, August 13th, 2019. Board of Trustees convening for the meeting. Heather, would you please call roll call?
Mr. Insco?
Present.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
And Mr. Unger?
Here.
Okay. Mr. Mills?
Yes, sir.
Convening for the executive sessions. What are the things will be?
Yes, sir. I recommend that the board move to go into executive session in accordance with Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22G1, to discuss the employment and compensation of public employees, specifically to conduct an interview. In accordance with Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22G3, to discuss pending or imminent litigation with the township attorney. In accordance with Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22G4, to discuss collective bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation. And finally, in accordance with Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22G8, to consider confidential information relating to specific business strategy and to discuss negotiations with other political subdivisions respecting requests for economic development assistance.
Thank you, Mr. Mills. Go ahead.
I guess to get this on the floor, you need to read off one more, which is to discuss employment and compensation of an employee without an interview.
Oh, okay.
So please read that off.
And also in accordance with the Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22G1, to discuss the employment and compensation of public employees not involving an interview.
Okay. I motion that we do such a thing.
I'll offer second.
Everybody? Any discussions? Anything?
Not for me.
Mr. Insco?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
And Mr. Unger?
Aye.
We will be back. It's 7 o'clock, August 13, 2019. We're convening for the Board of Trustees of Colerain Township. Heather, would you roll call, please?
Mr. Insco?
Present.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
And Mr. Unger?
Here. Mr. Mills.
Mr. Mills, go ahead.
Yes, we've returned from executive session, and I have nothing to report.
Okay. We got a motion to,
We don't need
executive
a
session.
motion
We
to
don't
come
need-
back from executive session.
Okay,
No, okay.
all right. Let's all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Let's remain standing for the meditation. Let's think about our police officers, firefighters, and also a brave police officer, Nicholas Roberts, who had a leg injuries. He had a multiple surgery when he was chasing the robber. It happened last week at the Marathon gas station. It's a brave act. Please pray for him and also his family. Thank you very much. Please be seated. The first on the agenda is Fiscal Office approval of minutes from July 23rd, 2019.
Indeed, I'd like to ask for your approval of the minutes of July 23rd, 2019.
I'll make the motion.
I would second the motion to approve the minutes from July 23rd, 2019.
Is there any discussion?
Not from me.
Any discussion, please?
Not from me.
Okay.
All right.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Insco?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
And Mr. Unger?
Aye. Did you have another minutes item? Okay. Go ahead, Raj.
The next is on agenda is the presentations, introduction and swearing in of promoted police officers.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Rajagopal, Board of Trustees. It's my pleasure to introduce Chief Mark Denny, who will introduce and swear in promoted police officers.
Thanks, Jeff. Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
Well, this is a happy event. We have the opportunity to not only swear in two of our new leaders, but we get the chance to introduce those to our community as well. Both officers have already assumed their roles for a number of weeks, and they're both doing a remarkable job. And tonight we get to share their success with their friends and their family. So I'm going to ask Sergeant Kyle Frandoni to step forward. While he's coming up, Kyle's been with the police department for 7 years. He was one of our original reserve officers. If you remember back in 2012, we hired a group of officers who worked thousands of hours for the township at no compensation. He was one of the first ones to do that. He's also served as our zoning enforcement officer and a school resource officer. And when we created our quick response team, Kyle was one of the first to step forward and say, I want to be part of that as well. He's always stepped up and done whatever this organization needs, and it's a true honor and a privilege to reward that commitment with by promoting him to sergeant tonight. Who do you have with you? Do solemnly swear. I will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America.
I will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America.
The Constitution of the State of Ohio and its bylaws.
The Constitution of the State of Ohio and its bylaws.
I will abide by the Colerain Police Department mission and value
I will
statement,
abide by the Colerain Police Department mission and value statement,
code of ethics,
code of ethics,
rules and regulations,
rules and regulations,
policy, and procedure.
and policy and procedure.
I will faithfully discharge the duties
I will faithfully discharge the duties of patrol sergeant
in and for Colerain Township,
in Colerain Township,
Hamilton County,
Hamilton County,
State of Ohio.
State of Ohio.
That's my ability.
To the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Next, I'm going to ask Lieutenant Ed Courtney to step forward. Ed joined the department in January of 2008. Lieutenant Courtney has been a very active member of the police department, and he's been leading our Citizens Police Academy for the past 9 years. He took that responsibility on and has done a fantastic job with that. Lieutenant Courtney was assigned as the department's administrative sergeant prior to his promotion to lieutenant, where he excelled at both fleet management, employee supervision, and all the incredibly important tasks that help us keep the police department running every day. Lieutenant Courtney is very much respected by his peers. As part of our promotional process, we ask each employee to take a moment to express their thoughts in a survey to help us gauge a better idea of how their promotion might impact the department. And he had overwhelming support. I didn't receive one negative comment from anyone in the police department about Ed, and he's very well respected. His promotion is well earned, and he's already contributing to the command staff at a very high level, so we're very happy to have him. There you go. All right. Do solemnly swear. I will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America.
Constitution of the United States of America.
Constitution of the State of Ohio and its bylaws.
Constitution of the State of Ohio and its bylaws.
I will abide by the Colerain Police Department mission and value statement,
I will abide by the Colerain Township mission and value statement,
code of ethics,
code of ethics,
rules and regulations,
rules and regulations,
police department policy and procedure.
police department policy and procedure.
I will faithfully discharge the duties of police lieutenant
I will faithfully discharge the duties of police lieutenant
in and for Colerain Township,
in Colerain Township,
Hamilton County,
Hamilton County,
State of Ohio.
State of Ohio.
To the best of my ability.
To the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Please-
Yes, thank you.
These promotions were made possible because the board allowed me to add a position to our command staff. So I thank you for supporting the police department. It's made a huge difference in our ability to accomplish our mission. So thank you very much.
Thank you for making our job easier. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. As a board, we congratulate our promoted officers. I'm so proud of our officers. We got the best in the country. And again, I thank you so much for recognizing, giving them the promotions. The next on the agenda, introduction and swearing in of the promoted Department of Fire and EMS Employee.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Rajagopal. The next item, we'll introduce Mr. Frank Cook, Fire Chief, and he will introduce and swear in the new Fire and EMS employee.
Good evening, Board. As stated before, I'd like to introduce and administer the oath of office to the Department of Fire EMS's newest full-time employee, firefighter paramedic Kelsey Allen. Will you please come forward, and your friend Alita? Kelsey's been with the department. She started off part-time here in July of 2018. In conversation with Kelsey, she indicated that she was first exposed to the department during her EMT training, where she was here riding along, and it was during her exposure here at that time that she knew that she wanted to work here. She was exposed to the QRT team during her time, and she was just very much attracted to the department. Academically, and Kelsey's training background, she's a graduate of Kansas State University. She has a bachelor's degree in education. She received her firefighting training here at Colerain Township in our recruit program. She's also a graduate of our paramedic program in conjunction with Cincinnati State Community College. In the short time that I've known Kelsey, she's demonstrated that she's very passionate about the profession. I see her as a visionary, whereas she has demonstrated the desire to lead and teach. She supports the mission and values of the department through her participation in our community risk reduction programs and volunteers in the community and community fundraising activities. Kelsey certainly has a bright future ahead of her, and on behalf of the department and the community, I welcome her to her new position as a full-time firefighter paramedic. So at this time, Kelsey, if you'd raise your right hand, repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Kelsey Allen,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America
that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio
and its bylaws,
and its bylaws,
and I will faithfully execute
and that I will faithfully execute
the duties of career firefighter paramedic in and for Colerain Township,
the duties of career firefighter paramedic in Colerain Township,
Hamilton County,
Hamilton County,
and the State of Ohio,
State of Ohio,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations. Okay, next, I'd like to ask that firefighter paramedic Paul Riedel please step forward. At this time, I'd like to recognize Paul for his 30 years of service to the community and to the department. For the past 30 years, Paul has served this community as a firefighter and paramedic. During his tenure, he has been instrumental in providing instruction and oversight of the department's driver's training program. Following the department's in the line of duty death loss of Captain Robin Brocksterman and Brian Shire in April 2008, Paul assembled a team of Colerain firefighters that spearheaded efforts to raise funds to support the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation by means of an annual regional golf outing. The National Fallen Firefighters Foundation was created by the U.S. Congress to lead a nationwide effort to remember America's fallen firefighters. Since 1992, the nonprofit foundation has developed and expanded programs to honor fallen fire heroes and assist their families and co-workers. The annual Greater Cincinnati Regional National Fallen Firefighters Memorial Golf Tournament has been held every June since 2008 at the links at Rising Star Casino and Resort in Rising Sun, Indiana. Since that time, Paul and his supporters have been able to contribute an estimated $175,000 to the foundation.
Wow.
As a result of his work, in 2013, Paul was awarded the Ohio Distinguished Fire Service Award. The award is for outstanding individuals who contributes to and leadership of the fire service within the state of Ohio. It has been a milestone in the development of those services whose actions have served not just their community, but have have also demonstrated leadership and accomplishment in those areas are widely recognized and respected in the state of Ohio Fire Service, across the region, and across the nation. Paul's award also earned him induction in the Ohio Fire Service Hall of Fame at the State Fire Marshal's office in Reynoldsburg, Ohio. In 2016, Paul was recognized as EMS Provider of the Year for his demonstration of innovative action orientation and a desire to positively impact emergency medical services. With regard to the part that Paul has played in maintaining our performance standards and commitment to excellence, as a symbol of our appreciation of his many years of service to the department and to the community, Paul, I present to you a plaque for the contributions that you have made for the success of the department. Thank you, Board.
Thank you. Brought the heat with you, didn't you, Frank? Holy moly. I assume
you,
we're
Chief.
looking at that.
Thank you, Chief. Again, we got the best fire department and the brave people. Well, we are so proud of them. The next on the agenda is Cca Yard Award presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Rajagopal. This is a really exciting presentation here. As part of our 225th anniversary as a township, the township has, well, yeah, we'll give everybody a chance to clear out if they'd like to.
Hey, Jeff.
I just felt it come on.
Good. Great.
Is Bob working on it?
Yes.
Is he here?
No.
We just.
Okay, everybody that's affiliated with the police and fire, I think, have stepped out, and so we can talk a little bit here about the Cca Yard Award. So as I was saying, this is our 225th anniversary in Colerain Township, and as part of that celebration, we have a number of initiatives that we have launched to sort of celebrate our anniversary. You'll recall a couple of months ago, we honored our longest tenured resident. We tried to find the person who has been in Colerain the longest. We've done a number of things like that. And this is this initiative, the Yard Award, is something that we're bringing back from the past. We partnered with the Colerain Community Association, a long-standing civic group here in Colerain Township who donates lots of hours to making Colerain beautiful. And we put out the word, who has the best yard in Colerain Township? Who has the prettiest yard in Colerain Township? We got tons of submissions, and this evening we're going to honor the 5 award winners, and I understand there might be 3 of them joining us this evening, but
Nice.
We'll start with 3904 Thimble Glen Drive. Is the resident of Thimble Glen Drive here this evening? Nope. All right, that's a beautiful property right down the street here. The next one is 3044 Pavlova Drive. Hello. All right.
What are we starting the bidding at?
I know. All right. So, Daniel and Nancy?
Yes,
All
Dan
right.
and Nancy.
There we go. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Love Pavlova.
Clear Meadow. And
That's pretty.
all right. Julie and Robert from 11495 Clear Meadow Court. Are you here this evening? All right. Well, thank you for having such a beautiful yard. 11971 Stone Quarry Court, Randy and Judith. Are you here? Nope. Well, thank you for having such a beautiful yard. And the White Oak Garden Center. Thank you so much. It looks
Did you hear the secret to the award? She shops there.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
That's it, yep. All right, well, look, we just wanted to take a second to thank the Colerain Community Association for reviving this program and helping to evaluate all the entries. From our staff, Jesse Urbancic put in a lot of hard work in steering this project on the part of the township. And thank you to all Colerain residents who take the time to make their homes look beautiful. The submissions, there were many, and it was very hard to winnow them down to these 5. But we appreciate the winners, and we appreciate all those who didn't win but still take an extraordinary amount of pride in their property. Thank you.
Jeff, I almost feel remiss if we didn't say this. I think we have at least one CCA member here. Is that right? Bob, are you our lone member here? Is there anyone else?
I don't believe there's anybody else here, but I'm here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's true. He's here.
Very good. Thanks. That's it.
The next on the agenda is people working cooperatively presentation.
All right.
That's what happens when you don't take care of your yard.
Good evening, Board, and those in
Good evening.
attendance this evening. Just a little background before the presentation. In 2015, our fire department expanded its scope of its medical service to include a new, first-in-its-region, non-emergency response model. That model included providing linkage of care to those suffering from substance use disorder, wraparound social services to those in need, and education and resource allocation for older adult fall prevention measures. The fire department could not provide these types of services alone. Fortunately, due to grant funding, opportunities, and vital partnerships, this increase in scope of service came at little to no cost increase to the residents of our community. One of those vital partnerships has been with a well-known organization, People Working Cooperatively. Our fire department created a partnership with them in an effort to combat the fall epidemic. Our fire department responds to 1,100 falls each year. Roughly half of those falls result in an injury that requires transportation to medical facility. A scary thought, 1 in 3 Colerain residents aged 65 and older will fall in the coming year. 20% of those falls will result in a serious injury that will include lengthy hospital stays and a potential for a decrease in quality of life. Many of these can be prevented, as falls are not a normal part of aging. Our intent is to reduce the number of repeat falls that have the potential to cause such a life-altering event. To speak to everyone tonight in greater depth about People Working Cooperatively and their partnership with us is Ron Headline, Director of Corporate and Community Partnerships, and Jock Pitts, President and CEO. However, prior to handing over the mic to them, I would like to take this moment on behalf of myself and Colerain Township to thank you both for your continued partnership and the invaluable resources you provide to our communities.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We are delighted to be here tonight. I'm Jock Pitts with People Working Cooperatively, and Will, thank you for the tremendous partnership that we enjoy with you. Colerain Township is a fabulous place to live, as you all know.
Agreed.
There are some people in our communities that struggle a little more than others, and so what PWC does, our full-time, all-the-time work, is to repair homes of people that primarily homeowners, but all low income. So those folks that are struggling, they're on a fixed income, or maybe there's been an accident or an illness in their home, and all they have is their house. They have no income. That's PWC's job. They come in and make those kind of emergency and critical repairs, maybe a modification or some energy conservation work that allows them to stay there safely and securely and more healthy in their homes. And just to give you an idea, in 2018, some of the work that happened just in Colerain Township is that there were a total of 314 repairs made at almost $300,000 invested into Colerain Township through these services. We're sort of invisible. You don't know we're out there, but because we don't advertise it in that way, but we're and they're backing keeping people safely and securely in their homes. What's been remarkable, though, is that it's more than just the house, it's the person. And we found that the services, it's the social determinants of health. When you are able to bring a house into good and repair, the person is actually healthier that lives there. Fall safety is one of those things. Asthma is another. There's not a lot of that's a real problem in our communities with childhood asthma. Homes that are tightly repaired have far less of that problem than others. So of those services that we do, just a couple of things, fun facts to know and tell. Of the people we've served, 124 of these homes were elderly. 104 of them had people with a disability, a serious disability, either a mobility or vision, something like that, that made it harder for them, maybe impossible, to repair their own home. Also, these homes include our children. People think, well, you're only serving elderly. No, usually about a third of all the individuals we touch are children. Grandma and grandpa are often those that are raising the children. And in Colerain Township, 9 homes, grandma and grandpa were indeed the caregivers for the children. And finally, not to be overlooked, a disproportionate number of veterans find themselves in this situation. And PwC has a program that very high advocates for our veteran population, and 34 homes in Colerain Township were served were veterans or a veteran's spouse. So we are proud to be partners with Colerain Township and look forward to doing this years into the future. And if I could invite Ron up for just a second to tell you a couple specific programs we're offering. And again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, good evening to all. I'm real excited to talk about some really great programs that we're bringing to Colerain Township. The first, I'm real excited to say that we have secured a grant from the Green and Healthy Homes Institute. It's the first such grant on fall prevention that they've given in the United States. And I'm also equally proud to say that we're partnering to bring it to Colerain Township. In fact, that program kicked off today at the Fire and EMS substation in Northgate Mall. We are introducing this pilot program, which is a planning grant to take to social investors, to take to managed care organizations across the United States through validating that falls are preventable. About a third is what the National Council on Aging will tell you, that falls are 100% preventable. Just think, if we could take out 300 of those 1,000+ falls on the quantitative side, but for the residents of Cincinnati or of Colerain Township, it's even more important, right? Because their lives change after they experience one of those falls. So what is this pilot program? So basically, this is a 7-week evidence-based program called Stepping On that kicked off today at Northgate Mall. It'll go for 2 hours for 7 weeks. It is open to anybody that's really over 60 years of age, might have a previous history of falls, or perhaps just worried about falls, perhaps their mom, perhaps their grandparents. It is totally free to the participants. It also includes not only the great education, it includes a free home assessment from people working cooperatively, and actually low-line, what I call interventions. That might be grab bars, might be grab rails, night lights, things that have proven to reduce falls, all at no cost to the individuals that are participating. On the backside, we'll be doing some measurements and survey on that pre and post that we'll take to GHHI to build a sustainable model to go forward. I think Jock mentioned, we're in 19 counties, we're in 52 neighborhoods. We chose Colerain Township because of your terrific leadership that you have here. And I have to call out one individual, Assistant Chief Will Mueller, who this program wouldn't be coming to the township without him and his personal dedication and outreach. And certainly along with Chief Cook and Chief Denny, your leadership for the residents of Colerain Township is unparalleled to many of the neighborhoods that we work with. And I certainly stand and applaud all of your efforts for leading that leadership and your concern. So that's one program that we're excited to announce. The other one, equally exciting, is our 3rd annual Colerain Give Back Day, which is coming up. It's going to be on September the 14th, 7:30 to 12:30. There's a brief sheet in your packets on that. And for any of the residents of Colerain Township, we've got information for you out in the entranceway when you leave. Please pick it up and sign up. This is a wonderful day. It's really a community model for every neighborhood throughout greater Cincinnati, which we've actually taken and had duplicated, not near to the extent, again, because of the leadership that you have in Colerain Township, but it's a very sustainable model that can be duplicated across all of greater Cincinnati. It's a volunteer day that includes residents, your fire, your EMS, your public service department, your administration, businesses, neighbors, really neighbors helping neighbors. Isn't that really what social cohesion is all about as we go forward and we have all the struggles that are going on in the United States today? What a great program to launch to get people engaged with their neighbors. So we're very excited about that. You know, in closing, I just want to thank everybody for the partnership, the active participation, the community leadership, and mostly a very heartfelt thank you and the genuine concern from each and every resident that your public service department really outpours. And I think sometimes goes unnoticed, but I guarantee if you traveled with us for a day into some of these residents' homes, you would feel the gratitude straight from their heart. So we really appreciate the time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you.
I wanted to ask Jock a question. How long have you been with the organization?
I've been there for 33 years.
I was going to say, you and I met about 10 years ago during a review of Hamilton County Senior Services.
I remember that, yes.
And for some work that they were doing, and I was on the Tax Review Commission for 11 years, and so I'm glad to see that we're both still alive and well and doing good. So yeah, I thought I remember meeting you. So,
Sir, I just want to make one comment. Your organization is amazing organizations. I get to be a part of it, to work with you guys. I used to be a chief, one of the chief in the probation department. I send the probationers during the fall time to help the seniors' houses. You pick up people and clean the gutters and everything. Mm-hmm. They work, how you guys started it, where you're going now, it's just amazing. You know, your vision is, it's not even, you can say it in words. And amazing work you're doing for the community. We thank you so much in choosing Colerain, as to help us.
Thank you. It is, like as Ron said, we're part of the neighborhood. We just want to be neighbors helping neighbors, and thank you for the fantastic partnership and the kind words tonight. We appreciate it.
Keep up the good work, for
Thank
sure.
you, sir.
For sure.
Thank you very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Go
I
ahead.
attended the first one of those stepping on classes today. Marvelous. I think everyone should get the information and hopefully it'll be repeated.
Thank you, Marlon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. The next and final presentation this evening will be given by Chief Mark Denny, and on the topic of the Northgate Mall contract.
Good evening again, Board. I appreciate the opportunity to provide an overview of the history of the relationship with the mall and the current proposed agreement that's before you this evening. We began our relationship with the mall ownership in 2012, and prior to that first agreement, we were responding to the mall for calls for service at a pretty significant rate that was costing the township quite a bit of money. And the trustees at that time saw a need with the new ownership and vision of the mall for the police department to partner with the mall to change the culture and the feel of a very important part of our township. Since that date, the police department has received nearly $2.2 million in revenue from the mall from this partnership. The board saw a need for increased road power in 2018. We needed more officers on the street. So this board chose to change that agreement in 2018. That change did reduce our revenue by about $135,000 per year, but it did allow us to put 10 extra officers on the street. And that model called for officers to be assigned as an extra duty detail. So we assigned officers to work the mall because we still believed the need for them was very important. A new proposal is in front of you that captures all employee costs while providing a revenue stream to the police department, increasing manpower while costing us absolutely nothing. Since 2012, the efforts of our officers has radically changed the feel of the mall. While there have been criminal incidents, we've been able to immediately respond to prevent anything major occurring that would cripple our economic development along Colerain Avenue and make our citizens less safe. You only need to look to Dayton and El Paso to see the terrifying impact of active shooters. A look at Dayton proves that an immediate response can save lives. Like it or not, our mall is a target for this type of activity. The revenue and cost savings witnessed from this relationship has allowed us to purchase equipment and safety gear while leaving our tax budget untouched. Canceling this contract, there are only negatives. We gain absolutely nothing. We lose a uniformed officer on standby should we have a critical incident within the mall where we need to pull an extra officer. We lose one of our beat officers when they inevitably respond to the mall for the multiple calls that we will receive every day. And we lose nearly $250,000 in revenue, and part of that's an administrative fee of 5%. We make the mall less safe for our residents, and we increase our dispatch fees because we will be required to respond to the mall. Again, it's a $17 dispatch fee every time we're called to the mall. The history of our relationship began in 2012, as I said before. The board saw an opportunity to revitalize a very core part of our township. There were very specific economic development plans that hinged on a safe environment in the mall, and our residents were in fear to shop at Northgate. That was the message they were telling us. Our costs associated with responding to the mall were significant and was impacting our ability to provide service to the rest of our township. A beat car was almost dedicated to the mall for the calls for service on a daily basis. Since we were going to the mall anyway, our thought was why not recapture some of those funds and bring those back into the police department. And again, since 2012, we brought $2.2 million back into the police department from this agreement. In 2018, that model changed the way we staffed the mall. The decision was made to reduce our presence at the mall during the time that it was open. We no longer staff overnight. Still desiring to capture and reduce dispatch fees and provide a safe environment at a vulnerable area in our township, the model allowed us to schedule officers who were not on the patrol schedule, and this required officers to receive overtime. The rate we charged them all was $52.50 per hour, and that did not include all the employee costs to the townships. There was a subsidy provided by the township for the reasons I just told you. That there's dispatch fee savings, there's an ability for having us at the mall quickly to respond to incidents, and the board saw fit that that was the proper arrangement. The decision to assign this duty came from the decision of the police department that it was an important assignment that not only reduced our operating costs, but provided police service in an area of our township that we saw as vulnerable and in need of a visible police presence. Not having an officer at the mall would reduce our manpower on the street and make the township less safe. The only way to guarantee that this would be covered every day was to assign an officer to the mall. We cannot require officers to work an off-duty detail. This is an extra duty detail. We pay the officers to be on duty, and this is where we assign them for their beat for that day. It would often go unfilled as an off-duty detail, and that's from speaking to the officers at that rate. They were not going to fill it on a consistent basis. And when that mall is not filled on a consistent basis, we incur costs from dispatch fees and, again, for dispatching a neighborhood officer to the mall to cover a detail that the mall officer could have taken care of. Now, the agreement before you tonight offers the same coverage as 2018, but there's a 23% increase to the mall. All employee costs and all township costs are captured in this rate. In addition to capturing all the costs and reducing our dispatch fees, the township generates a 5% administrative fee, which is at least an additional $12,000 of revenue to the township. Now, that $12,000 again allows us to purchase equipment at no cost to our taxpayers. This slide it just demonstrates the current rate, or the prior rate on the contract that expired at $52.50. On the right are the two new rates for officers and sergeants. And it does capture the Medicare, the workers' compensation, and the PERS contribution. This chart just demonstrates the expired agreement. When I say current agreement, that's an off-duty detail that is currently covering the mall now until the board gives us direction one way or the other on how to move forward. So again, that's an independent contractor agreement with the officers, not with the township, and the officers are being paid directly from the mall. The proposed agreement again is $64.47 for the officers. And if you look down to the revenue to the township, $257,000 at just the police officer rate. Now, if you add the sergeants in there, it could be up to upwards of $296,000. So that's the rate of revenue we would be generating from this agreement. Now, the impact, again, of removing that officer from the mall, the officer's gone. That 3-beat card is now going to respond up to the mall, and now they're out of service. So we were down in a unit. Now that's an open beat, so we need to draw another car over. So you can see how this impacts the entire township by removing that element in the mall. Having the mall officer there handles all the details. We can keep our officers in the neighborhoods patrolling and doing the other duties that they need to be doing. Changing this relationship with the mall is, if it's not approved, will significantly impact the operations of the police department. Accelerate the need for us to petition our citizens possibly for a levy in the future. The mall is willing to pay for officers and provide a revenue stream to the police department. Sadly, Malls have been a target for domestic terrorism. If you look at the FBI report on active shooters, they've identified schools, malls, Walmarts, and movie theaters as very big targets for active shooters. We've got every one of those covered in the township. We've got a Walmart detail that's paid at the same rate that I'm showing you tonight. Walmart pays that rate to have an officer there. We've covered the schools, and we have officers at the movie theater. So we've got all the high targets in the township covered with this agreement in place. You can ask our officers, and I think some of them may have emailed you, that there have been instances where we've actually saved lives because we've been on scene and able to respond immediately to somebody's need at that mall. Whereas pulling somebody from a beat to respond could add 5-6 minutes to that response time.
Is that a medical emergency? Is that what you're?
Medical emergency, they were able to resuscitate somebody who was not breathing.
Wow.
We also have the ability to take that officer if necessary. If we had another capstan incident, we can take that officer and use them on the road as well. That's a uniform officer who's basically on standby 11 hours of the day. Should we have a critical incident, and that's very, very rare, obviously, but we have the ability to have an officer in uniform ready to move at our disposal should we have to resort to that. We had a workplace study done about 3 years ago by UC, and their quote was that 96% of communities with our population have a higher citizen-to-officer ratio than we do. In fact, they said the average number of sworn officers per citizen is considerably higher for the vast majority of other cities with similar crime rates as Colerain. Not approving this agreement reduces our manpower. You're going to take an officer who would normally be in our neighborhoods and require them to respond to calls for service at the mall. Approving this agreement allows us to keep our officers in the beat, puts an officer in a high-value area in our township who can respond for those calls and improve our manpower. All we accomplished by not passing this agreement is to make Colerain Township less safe. With fewer officers, we're removing $250,000 of revenue from our police department funds. In contrast that with the fact that we can add manpower, add safety and revenue while costing this township absolutely nothing. There is no cost to the township. The costs are covered through this agreement with officers who are not scheduled to be on the road, and it adds manpower to our roadways. Any questions I can answer?
Thank you, Chief.
That's all the presentations we have this evening.
The next on the agenda is public hearing. Public hearing, zoning case ZA 2019-04. Zoning map amendment for 3067 Harry Lee Lane.
Thank you, Trustee Rajagopal. To begin the public hearing, did you want to open up the public hearing and then swear everybody in?
We should do a motion to open it.
I recommend that the board move to open the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll second the motion to open the public hearing.
Then would you like me to give my presentation?
And call for a vote.
Discussion.
Call the roll.
Discussions.
Was
From me.
Okay.
Mr. Inscoe?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
And Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Anyone who's going to testify in the public hearing, please rise and raise your right hand.
Okay, very good. So the staff report on this, the matter that's before the board is a petition for a zone map amendment on Harry Lee Lane, located at 3067 Harry Lee Lane. The petitioner requests that the zoning classification for his parcel be changed from R7 residential to B2 business. The applicant is Ron Chadha, and the owner of the property is Ganapathy LLC. The subject property we can see here, we've got Galbraith Road on the north going right to left across the screen. At the bottom, you see Banning Road going right to left across the screen, and Colerain Avenue running north-south or up and down. Here is a zoning map, which shows you, typically folks would recall that the Mount Airy Pony Keg is right in front of this subject property. Here's a couple more views of the property. The applicant is seeking to expand the Mount Airy Pony Keg and requests that this zone map amendment be made in order to accomplish that goal. The matter was taken before the Hamilton County Regional Planning Commission. They recommended denial of the application. It was then taken to the Colerain Township Zoning Commission. The Colerain Township Zoning Commission recommended denial. And staff also recommends denial of this zone map amendment. That concludes my report. Recommendation is you have a resolution in front of you that will accomplish the task of denying the petition.
Heather, are you going to read the resolution title?
I was going to, yes, if the board would like me to at this moment. It's Resolution 31-19, case number ZA 2019-04, 3061 Harry Lee Lane. Denial of a rezoning request from R7 multifamily residential to B2 general business. Parcel numbers 510-0071, 0299, and 0531.
And I would recommend that the board first move to close the public hearing and then make a motion to adopt the resolution.
I would motion that we close the public hearing.
I'll offer a second.
Any discussions?
Not from me.
From roll call, please.
Ms. Driscoll,
I do have a discussion. I'm sorry.
can we close the public hearing first?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr.
Aye.
Driscoll?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
And Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Okay. Now the motion for the resolution.
Motion to adopt the resolution as read by Mrs. Harlow.
And that'll bring it to the floor. So
Wait a minute.
I will go ahead and motion to adopt the resolution.
I'll offer a second to bring it to the floor.
Any discussions?
I'm sorry, who made the motion? I'm sorry.
did.
Okay.
And Greg seconded it.
Okay. All right. Discussion?
Yeah, this is a newly purchased piece of property. Has he expressed any backup plans or anything like that?
Not that I'm aware of.
Heather, do you know of any transfers on a liquor license or anything like that?
Not off the top of my head, I'm sorry.
Any further discussions?
Nothing from me.
Roll call, please.
We're voting to approve.
To adopt the resolution. Yep.
You're voting to adopt the resolution to deny the zone amendment request.
Okay.
All right. So, Ms. Driscoll?
I was actually on the fence on this, but Ron's not here today, correct? Ron, you're not here? No? Okay, well then, my vote would be aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
And Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Thank you, board.
The next on the agenda is the citizens' address. Like it's been our practice, and you've been very kind. Then, keep your address in 5 minutes. I really want to emphasize, please stick with the agenda. And every address that you're going to make, I'd like to focus on what's the items on the agenda. Okay?
Real quick, that looks like a small stack. Did everybody sign in that wanted a chance to
Is there
speak?
more there?
If anybody did not
It's
sign
pretty
in.
big stack.
Oh, is it a big stack? It looked like a small one to me. Just to make sure everybody saw that they're supposed to sign in first.
So I'd like to encourage you to speak 5 minutes because it gives opportunity everyone to speak, and also we can conduct our business. We got a lot of things going on now tonight. Okay? I'll go with the list here. I'll call now Sharon Sligo.
Were you the first to sign in, Sharon? Yeah. Okay. All right, we're going in the right order.
Yeah, on the stack.
The fire department took it with them.
Thank you.
What you got for me?
Paper.
Paper, all right. I love paper airplanes.
That is a copy of St. Bernard's nuisance laws, which I'm hoping you guys will look over. I asked Chief Denny if we've had anything like this in Colerain, and he said no. So I think you guys should look over it. I thought it was pretty good, very interesting about what they do for their nuisance laws. And our mailman almost got hit by a car today because some idiot decided to fly through the stop sign. Are you guys ever going to put cops back there to radar stop signs?
No.
Anyone?
Did you
I'm
call
still
that?
reading
Did
your-
you call 321 cops on that?
No. I figured the mailman would.
Chief Denny will certainly respond to your question after the meeting, what the patrol level is back there.
Okay, because we need them back there since the roads are done and they're speeding through and
Yeah, we figured that would happen.
all that fun stuff that he almost got ran over. And Greg, there's cookies out there, and you guys have a good night.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Norm.
I'll share, I promise.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon. What kind of cookies?
Next is Kathy Moore, please.
Don't start the clock yet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
I'm going to do something a little different. I'm just going to read through this. I'm not going to stop because I expect an answer because I know I won't get one. So first of all, I'd like to thank the assistant administrator for taking some time to go over the website with me. That was very informative for me. As far as public records go, I think we know that we're not going to be able, we shouldn't expect anything for quite a while, if not up through March, as though we've requested records and we know other people are receiving records. So to begin, according to job descriptions, the HR specialist manages information to inform employees of benefits, insurance plans, pension, paid time off, bonus pay. Do we have a policy regarding bonus pay? We currently have 3 full-time positions actively working in the finance department: HR specialist, finance specialist, and account specialist, all who work 40 hours a week. Why can't one of these specialists, which is a total of 120 hours a week, do the bank reconciliation, financial activity and posting, answer emails, make payroll changes, process new hires, put in retro pay, and respond to questions and follow up, including benefit-related questions? Let other employees know how to do these duties so we don't end up in the same situation again. The finance director could show these specialists how to do this job, and then they will know how to do it in case the situation ever comes up again that we don't have somebody there. And we wouldn't have to pay a contract for an employee for 9 months unnecessarily. I still question why she's under contract until Heather's termination as fiscal officer. You need to use the employees already in these positions. I received a copy of an invoice 72019, including a reimbursement for mileage. This is a former employee, now a contract employee. Nowhere in the contract do we see a reimbursement for mileage. There's no information as to where the contract employee went or what the purpose was, which should be required. Did we reimburse this contract employee for driving on Cross County and I-275? If so, why? It's another example where you approve contracts and nobody follows them. Why have a contract if you're not going to honor the conditions of that contract? At the last meeting, Mr. Mills stated that there would be no police protection at the mall as of 9 p.m. the following day, then said, unless they enter an off-duty contract. I have no doubt that Mr. Mills knew at that time he was deliberately misleading the public. When I emailed the board as to whether police were on duty, one trustee said no. Another forwarded it to the administrator, which I believe he didn't know the answer. And the third trustee refuses to answer email questions because he was advised by the law director not to. However, he sent me a text message questioning something about the last meeting, to which I replied. Hiring policy. Requested step pay rates. There are none. Mr. Mills states in an email that it would be the entry-level salary of that position. You need to clarify if that is an entry-level pay rate at the time of hiring due to the position or the current entry-level pay. If it is the current pay, the employee would have only a minimal salary decrease. The previous policy was that employees took a 20% decrease in pay. I think that would be fitting for all employees if it was a universal amount. If you do nothing, we will have another situation which allows the administrator to make up the rules at that time. By not acting on these policies, you're negligent in your duty as an elected official. You have on other occasions made changes to the policy, but will not address those items in question. Raj, as president of the board, I request the board to set a date to discuss these items in the policy manual in regard to questions raised. I emailed Mr. Mills to bring this up to the board, but it's obvious that it's not that important. Upon the release of the 2016-17 audit in November 2018, the state auditor advised the township to consult legal counsel and the IRS to assess possibility of recovering the employer Social Security contribution made. There was no litigation regarding this issue at the time the audit was released. Did the law director advise the township not to do anything? Did the township contact the IRS to resolve and receive overpayment as it was recommended? Now we have on the agenda another loan for police and fire. According to the appropriation fund, journals, we have spent $167,218.35 for the police and $208,324.98 for the fire department. And I will give you a piece of paper that has my questions
Thank you.
from the last meeting and this meeting, that I've not gotten to.
Thank you.
Real quick, the first one I did message Heather on. Heather, are we able to amend those minutes? That's not on today's.
And,
Yes.
Okay, so we got one of those done, Kathy.
for Heather. Those are the requests I have recently that I've not gotten no response. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. The next is Glenda, please. Glenda Smith.
I'm sorry, I can't read my writing.
That's okay. How you doing?
Hi, good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I'll be very brief. My name is Glenda A. Smith. I'm co-host of Wave 88.3 FM. I Hear You, which is a family-oriented, children-centered program. And I invite you, administrators and trustees and staff, to come on the program and talk about activities that you have in your community that promote and support families and children. And if you don't want to come on the program, you can submit information to me and I'll give you my contact information and I'll make sure to announce it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. I have to ask, are you allowing potential candidates? Because I'm sure there's a few people that would love to get on there and just.
If, as long as they talk about something here that's going to help families and children.
Amen.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for your kind invitation.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Next on the list is Keith Miller, please.
I can feel the AC coming on if anyone else is with me.
It would be a big help if we had some here.
Yeah. How you doing, Keith?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, neighbors, board. I'd like to talk about this thing on the agenda. I mean, this room is about the concerns of the neighbors and what our concerns are. And all you elected officials should be worried about what the concerns are of the people. It's what these people think. No matter what the concern is, we got 5 minutes. You guys should listen to it. Whether you agree with it or not, you should listen. Not just what's on the agenda, because that makes one person run in the room, and that's the person writing the agenda. And that's not what this is supposed to be about. It's supposed to be about the people. And, listen to us, which we never got, We come in here, we disagree with stuff back here, but we still listen. To whom, I don't know. But it's not this room when we make decisions. You listen to these people when you make decisions, not the people sitting beside you. And that's all I'm going to have to say. And put somebody in charge of the air conditioning besides a kid. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Keith.
Good night.
Good night.
The next is Doris Thomas, please.
How you doing, Dolores? We haven't seen you in a while. Good to see you back.
Picture they
lady has been busy. Good evening. I am affectionately known in Northgate area as the Picture Lady. I've been honored to have photo exhibits in the greater Cincinnati and Hamilton County area, and I had a ball at our Colerain Township fireworks, and I have a picture that I would like to give to the township in celebration of my fun as the Picture Lady, and for those of you who like
That's awesome.
It's beautiful.
Larry, do we need to motion? We need to amend the agenda
So
and then
thank you
motion
very
to
much,
accept it.
and this world need more hugs.
Amen.
And if beauty can hug a heart, if kindness can hug a heart, if just saying kind things because it's the right thing to do, I want to lead that parade.
Okay, thank you. We don't need.
Can you say something about a hug or something? What else supposed to be
I'll come around.
Thank you for this.
what I always get.
Very, very kind of you to give us that picture. Can I have that? I'll set that up here so people can see it. We'll put that right over here so that we can pick that up.
You only got about 50 left when you're done.
You know what she said?
Everybody get in line.
It's so authentic. It comes from her heart. You love this township.
I do.
You know?
44 years.
All the work you've done in township is amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Raj?
That's a very nice picture, and it's right there so everybody can get a look at it after the meeting. Thank you so much.
The next one's Marianne Myers, please.
How you doing? Good, thanks for being here.
I'm new at this, don't really know exactly what I'm here to accomplish, but I was dismayed yesterday when I opened my email and received word that the EPA is granting all permits for the Rumpke expansion. And I understand there's an appeal period, and I just wondered, from the standpoint of Colerain Township, is it in your plans to do anything further on that matter? Or is Colerain done and going to accept where we stand with Rumpke?
Larry, do you want to answer that?
Part of the settlement was the township agreed not to appeal.
And that was done in what year? 15?
2015.
I believe it was 2015.
For all of us.
That was the township agreed at that time to accept the contractual arrangement with Rumpke, the amount they pay us, and we can't appeal it. I did get that email, and I did print it off. I just got this today, and I want to read it. On the bright side, the EPA has taken full responsibility for it now by issuing a permit, and I think you can appeal to them. I think the 30-day appeal is to the Environmental Protection Agency.
Exactly, yeah.
I mean, it's beyond the township at this point. But I think that you posted this, I asked you to get this posted on our website so people could see it.
Yes, sir, under news.
Okay, so if anybody wants to read this voluminous document, it is posted on our website. I just got this earlier today, so.
Can I ask a follow-up then?
Of course.
So I'm curious about the population of Colerain Township and their interest in seeing an outcome. If there was some sort of movement in that direction amongst the population, since you're handcuffed, would we be able to have communication about that on any official, like the website or or use any of your platform for a populist movement, if you will.
I think contractually, we're bound to, we are contractually bound, and the EPA, I mean, the EPA has taken full responsibility for everything by issuing that permit, is it's not a legal interpretation, that's my interpretation. And frankly, at the township level, I don't believe we have the technical expertise here to maintain that type of project, or I think it's a big science project, how it works, and the EPA has all the different credentialed folks that understand how to build a landfill, how to keep it under control.
Yeah, I'm not asking for the
Right.
township to become technically involved. I'm asking if we can use the township's platform to engage the community, if the community cared to be engaged in an appeal.
And
And you're thinking no, is what I'm hearing.
Ma'am, let me give my ideas, thoughts on that. The community, the citizens have every right to appraise and voice their opinions. If any violation, anything Rumpke does, they have a right. But now, okay, if you come up with some ideas, we can address to Rumpke. This does not prevent Rumpke, this does not allow Rumpke to do more violations which will affect the community, our children, our senior citizens, community as a whole. This does not limit them all. I got this, I can do anything I want to. But still, our community has a right to raise up, hey, something is going on. Then we can go to the Rumpke and tell them this is a people's concern. We still have the right to say it. But like appealing like this is a process. There's a law. They all went to the settlement. It happened 2015 when the previous Board of Trustees, they settled this case. Okay, but that does not give any right to Rumpke to do more violations.
I appreciate that.
So any movement you want to do, please do so.
Yeah, I'd piggyback off saying just that grassroots movement is what you're going to need. It just takes a group of people that are passionate about that particular movement. But there's always strength in numbers. So if that's something you're really passionate about, I would start online and let it branch out from there.
All right, well, hopefully you'll hear from me. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Carlin, please.
Hello, gentlemen.
Good evening.
If you could quickly answer or wait till the end and take some notes, please. And if you could also refrain from scratching the microphone, that would be greatly appreciated as well. Actually, my first question was about Rumpke as well. And I'll piggyback off what she said. When does that contract that we have with them expire? When can we start challenging Rumpke? Or is it just indefinite? You said we have a contract that we can't appeal this.
We'll let Larry address that.
The contract goes on for many years.
Just no time frame, just many years?
There's a time frame on it, but I don't know it off the top of my head.
Okay. So then can we start being harder on Rumpke for other things like the smell and everything else that's going on? You can smell Rumpke from the highway when you're driving down the highway. It's not a really appealing when you're coming into Colerain to smell it. Is there something that the board can do as far as that those topics go, since we can't, can we push back somewhere? Doesn't have to necessarily be an appeal, but can we push back on Rumpke since they operate in our township? Just one of the questions I had. Let's see. So it looks like we're hiring a mechanic tonight for the fire department. I was wondering, how many mechanics do we have, and do they also service police vehicles? And then I had some questions about the vehicles that we're purchasing as well for the police department. My first question is, why do we lease vehicles instead of purchasing them? Why are the funds for this coming out of the general fund and not the police budget? How much does each car cost? How often do we rotate out these vehicles? And is there a document that I can request to get a list of the cars that we have, the year, make, and model, how many miles they have? Is there anything like that that they would have on file that I could take a look at? Next topic is about the chicane that's being built. So a friend of mine's father's been employed with Abercrombie & Associates for over 2 decades. and I love that we're giving back to a local company. However, it looks like none of the other bids came back on that. Do we plan on getting additional bids before we accept that?
I think that's just a design contract. I don't think that's to actually
When I
build
read
it,
the
is it?
packet agenda, there was other bids that were put out for it. The only one that came back was from Abercrombie and Associates.
I don't know the answer to that.
And
Jeff
also-
will answer all these questions he's writing down. I want you to go ahead and
That's fine, yeah.
address.
The other thing is, what evidence do we have that this single chicane's gonna actually slow down traffic? So that's the next one. Lastly, we had some concerned residents about, wondering about what happened at the P&G property and if we were gonna get an update on that for the lady that was stabbed and found. We were also wondering what happened to the lady that was found stabbed, on East Miami River Road back in October, or, I'm sorry, she was found dead on East Miami River Road back in October. We were wondering if there's ever gonna be an update on any of that, so we can be informed. If there's a vehicle description, if we know where they were that night, if they wanna reach out to the public to see if if anybody has anything that could help the police. And then, regarding this contract with Northgate Mall, I feel that some of it's a little bit misleading. In all of 2018, the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office lists 276 billable calls to Northgate, which is equivalent to $4,500 in 911 charges. The evidence that we were provided today said that it was $20,000 annually. The first quarter of 2019, there was only 40 billable calls. So not for or against, I found some errors in the numbers there, and I wanted to point that out. And I think that's pretty much it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I think that concludes the citizens' address. The next on the agenda is administrative reports.
Thank you, Mr. Rajagopal. I can answer a few of Mr. Peck's questions here related to the Chicane. Did we plan to get more bids? So that was a proposal process. We asked for proposals, and we received two. One of them was not responsive to our scope. So all we really were looking for were design services from an engineer to design the Chicane in the right-of-way. And so we got two responses. One was Abercrombie, and one, I forget the name of the other one, but it was not responsive to the scope. And so that's why we went with Abercrombie, and it was a fair price. That's why we presented that. Do we have any evidence that it's going to slow down traffic? Yes, and this is really exciting. So one of the things that we're trying to do is do quick, cheap, fast, but effective interventions to test an idea, right? And so what we did was we spent $250 on some bales of hay, and we went out to Laura Linda, and we actually deployed those bales of hay in the shape of a chicane. We called up fire department, and they brought their biggest ladder truck out to make sure that we could get a ladder truck through. And then we had two speed signs that were taking data on the number of vehicles and the speed of those vehicles. Before we installed it, I believe it was a 3-week test period to get a baseline. We did the installation, and it was installed for about 3 weeks, and we tested that data, and then after we took it out, and there was we have data for all those periods, and there was a demonstrable dip in speeds when that thing was deployed. And so for $250, we were able to figure out that this was an effective intervention, and that type of process is one that I want to replicate, and it's actually one that's going to be replicated throughout the region. We're spearheading an initiative to create a traffic calming library that can be shared throughout the entire region. And so far there's about 12 communities that are looking at the establishment of this traffic calming library, whereby we all have these traffic calming things and we can loan them to each other when they're not in use in our community to see what works where. Because a speed bump or a speed table or a chicane or whatever is not going to work in every place, and we want to find out if it does work. And so that's what we did. We do know that it is demonstrable, it is effective in that location. There were a bunch of questions about the police in terms of their vehicles and the year, make, and model that I don't know off the top of my head, and I'll let Chief answer those if he is able to, and if not, we'll get back to you on that, Mr. Peck. And then I think that those were aside from, I guess there's a list of questions that Ms. Moore presented, but I don't have that, and I'd be happy to answer those when I leave here. So I just want to take a second as part of my administrative report to congratulate Sergeant Frandoni and Lieutenant Courtney and firefighter paramedic Kelsey Allen. You guys deserve, this wasn't a gift. You guys worked your butts off for this for a very long time, and you deserve it. And I'm so proud of the leadership that we have coming up in our police and fire departments. We've got some big things coming. We've got a lot on the agenda tonight, and I'm looking forward to making progress tonight. With that, we'll bring up Fire Chief Cook. Would you like to start?
Reporting the emergency incident activity for July 2019, there were 721 emergency medical service incidents that the department responded to, 187 fire or service-related incidents, and there were 30 responses into the contract area of Springfield Township. During the month, there were 4 building fires of significance, the first one being on Thursday, July 4th, in the 10,000 block of Pippin Road. Second one occurred on Friday, July 5th in the 3900 block of Old Savannah Drive in the condo complex. Third one was Saturday, July 13th in the 2300 block of Hidden Meadows Drive. And the fourth one, Sunday, July 21st in the 3400 block of Niagara Street. The reported estimated fire loss, property loss was $110,300 during the month. Our average response time for arrival of the first unit on scene was 5 minutes and 17 seconds. First unit on scene in less than 6 minutes occurred 69.09% of the time.
Is that up or down from previous? I didn't catch that.
That is actually up, I believe. In response to the question about how many mechanics the fire department employs, we have one fleet services manager that manages the operation, and we have a position for 2 full-time mechanics and then 1 part-time mechanic technician. And we currently service fire department, EMS vehicles, and public works vehicles. Okay.
Thank you, Chief.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Frank.
Thank you, Chief. Next, we'll bring up Police Chief Mark Denny. I'm trying to turn this on here for you, Chief.
And while he's doing that, Mark, could you, it didn't make it into the media at all, the officer that we prayed for a little earlier who was involved in that pretty dramatic police chase. I think it was our guy that got there first. Any update on him? Or I don't think anybody even saw it on the news because the news is always never accurate. So,
if you're familiar with the shooting that occurred in Westwood, it started with a robbery at the Marathon Station across from St. James, which is in Green Township. As the suspect was fleeing, he passed Officer Nick Robers and Brent Wethington, who had heard the call and were starting that direction. They were able to turn, follow him, started a pursuit. Eventually, he bailed out by Mercy High School, armed with a gun. As Officer Robers was chasing him, he stepped in a hole in the front yard and broke his leg. He has 6 places that he had fractures, and he tore the ligament off the other part of his foot. So he's in rough shape. He can't even walk on it for 6 weeks. So, but he
kept running anyway.
What's amazing is he got back up, and we watched his body camera video, and he ran for about another quarter to a half a mile because this guy was still out in the neighborhood with a gun. As he rounded the corner, the officers fired and shot the suspect, and he was able to finally sit down and get an ambulance to take care of him. So incredibly brave, did a fantastic job. We're very proud of him, but we wish he wasn't hurt. So
yes, I'd like it if you bring him to a future meeting soon.
Absolutely. And as soon as he can walk, I'll bring him.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm glad he's doing okay.
Thank you for bringing that up. Thank you very much.
Sure.
This is the police activity report for July of 19. We had 3,897 calls for service. And you can see it broken down by beat there. Kind of give you an idea. The 4 and the 1 beat are our most active beats, followed by the 5 and then the 3. So just gives you an idea of where our activities are. Okay. Crashes for the month, we had 205 vehicle crashes. 32 of those were with injuries, and sadly, we had one fatality on Cheviot Road. We also had 32 hit-skip investigations. The map depicts our traffic stops. We had 299 traffic stops with 263 traffic citations. Looks heavy along Colerain Avenue because that's where most of our crashes are. And almost every crash is a citation written, so that's why that seems to be heavy. But you see they're out throughout the neighborhoods and all throughout the township making traffic stops. Alarm drops, we had 224 alarm drops, 213 were false for a rate of 95% false, which was 106 patrol hours and $1,800 in dispatch fees spent on false alarms. Response times, 51% of all calls were responded to within 5 minutes, down a little bit from last month. It tends to happen during the summer as our call volume picks up. It does impact our response times a little bit, so that's not a strange thing to see. Our arrests for the month were 246. This goes back to 2008 in July also, so these are all for July of those specific years, so it's the last 11 years. So we're evening up just a little bit on arrests as well. And we had 53 new cases assigned to our criminal investigative unit this month, so they're quite busy. They have 164 active cases that they're working. I'll answer some of the questions that came up. For the stop sign back in Royal Heights, I entered an extra patrol request as I sat back there, so our officers will be able to see that and they can add some extra patrol, and they actually document that in the system, so I should be able to pull it up and make sure those are getting done. But our guys are very good about keeping up on that and making sure that they hit those extra patrols for us. An issue came up about the mall contract and us covering that. Mr. Mills misled no one. On July 24th, that contract expired. The mall hired private security. And as I do with every off-duty agreement between officers and companies, I don't call Jeff and tell him that we have an off-duty agreement. He was not aware of that. I was in Mississippi for a few days. I notified him of that, and he made notification to you. He misled nobody. He found out and told you when I let him know. We have off-duty details that come in all the time. For decades, the tradition with the police department had been that there's an agreement that they sign, that the officers and the business have an agreement between them, the business pays the officers, and that's what happened at the mall. And that currently goes on now until we find out what's going to happen tonight with this contract. Lease versus purchase, Mr. Pegg asked that. We use that for a couple of reasons. We were able to get $200,000 worth of police cars, but only taking $40,000 out of our funds, so it allows us to use our funds for other things throughout the year. A decision was made, I believe 2 years ago, to do 2 years of our capital from the general fund, and that's why they came out of the general fund. So this allows us to get cars out on the roadway without spending the $200,000. The average cost, I believe it was, Ed, correct me if I'm wrong, but $34,000 equipped to get those out on the road. And we usually rotate them every 4 years. A couple reasons why. We used to have an extra warranty on them to allow us to up that resale value, so we try to find that spot where we can get the most resale value back to allow us to offset the cost of moving forward with it. So if we burn them out, then they really don't have much of a value, so we try to find that spot where we get the most value for the vehicle. Mike Handler, who's the township's fleet maintenance guy, he's an expert on that, and he provides us some of it. Did I hit your questions on that?
Thank you.
Okay. Chicane, Jeff talked about that. We can't get you the mileage in years. We have a document that we can send you.
Yeah, that'd be neat.
That'll have that for you. The detail rate you mentioned, the years you looked at were 18 and 19?
18 in the first quarter, yes.
What that doesn't capture is the calls to the officers and the whole thing.
Okay.
The stores all have that number, they can call the officer directly.
I wondered if that might be the case.
They can also call here, the 321 cops number.
It's not an emergency, right?
So the comm center is going to get any 911 call or dispatch, so that's a fraction of the calls. We averaged about 3 to 4 calls a day is where we got that $20,000 figure.
Okay.
That's probably conservative. As far as the investigations, that's just that. They are under investigation. There's not any appropriate information to release to the public. If we had any public safety information, we would absolutely release that. It doesn't do us any good to put information out there that, number one, we can't prove, and we might have to retract, or might hinder the investigation anyway. We are working on this nonstop. We have our best detectives working on it. If we do have information we can release, we certainly will, but it's not appropriate at this point to release any information, which is why we haven't done it.
Thank you, Chief. Just to expound on a couple of those comments, Mr. Peck asked the question, which is a good one, why did the general fund pay for capital purchases in the police department? As you know, the police and fire are operated and funded on levies. And so levies have a specific amount of time that they're set for, and before we have to come back and say to the public, do you like your level of service? Do you want it to increase or decrease? And do you want, to pay for that level of service increase or decrease? One of the ways that we're trying to extend the life of our police and fire levies is by using economic development funds to pay for capital equipment. And so a couple of years, 2017, Best Buy TIF and Stone Creek TIF ended. The purpose of the revenues in those funds were to construct the roads that we see over there now. That purpose was met, and it outperformed our expectations. So at the end of that TIF period, those revenues were able to come back to the general fund, and we were able to use those economic development revenues to purchase capital equipment in our levy-funded departments. And that is a way that we're trying to keep from having to come back to the residents for a tax levy increase. So that's one thing. And then the other thing I wanted to take the opportunity to do is, on our website, the question came up about how many individuals are in the fleet maintenance department. And on our website, we have this transparency portal here, and at the bottom, there's an org chart. And this org chart is approved by the Board of Trustees, and this is our maximum strength. So all of these, you can't see it from far away, but if you go to the website, you can take a look, and you'll see every single position that's authorized by the Board of Trustees for us to fill. Sometimes they are vacant for a time while we are looking for people, but if anybody's interested in who and what and how the government operates here, this is the org chart that was adopted by the Township Trustees. So it's just a piece of information.
And when we update those positions, it'll be updated, but right now we haven't filled those 2 positions.
That's right.
That are up there.
Yep, you bet. Okay, so with that, we'll bring up Mr. Schwartzoff, the Director of Public Service Departments.
How you doing, Kevin?
Good, how you doing? Thanks, Jeff.
Sir.
I've got a few items for tonight. The first is this Friday, it'll be our last movie in the park. It's the live-action Dumbo movie. This will conclude our free Sizzling Summer Entertainment Series. The movies in the park were sponsored by Dr. Darcy Bradley, and also Commencement Church provided free popcorn at the movies. The band schedule and the movie schedule was planned and managed by event coordinator Tawana Moulton. She does a great job every year planning out our special events, including the 4th of July. On August 24th, we have a permit of camping at Heritage Park. We currently have 9 registrants, but that actually adds up to 45 individual campers. Each of those persons is bringing more than just themselves to camp. Skip Royal Heights update. All the utility lids are to grade now. The landscape contractor has been on site removing weeds, adding topsoil where needed, and he will begin hydroseeding this week. That'll probably take over 2 weeks for him to finish that work. Once that's done, then we will be putting in the final inch of asphalt, and that should be done sometime in September. Our in-house paving program, we have R.A. Miller doing that. All the curbs are in, all the gutters are in. The next phase is the milling of 2 inches off the top, and then coming back with 2 inches of new asphalt. We hope to have that project done by October.
Kevin. Hi. I had a request from some folks over at Memory and John Rose about the number of cars that are going through that stop sign, and I had talked to Jeff, and it seems that you have gotten the stop bars painted and added stop to it, and that's a great example of a citizen who saw a problem, reported it to a person, and handed it off to you, and you got it done, and that's happened since the last meeting, and I wanted to thank you for that.
You're welcome. It does look really good.
That's a pretty, if you go stand over there and watch, there's everybody going through there thinks they can run the stop sign. Also, when you conclude your report, there's a citizen here who was might have a few questions for you, so if you could meet her out in the hallway, she'll be able to address you, because I see her sitting back there with not exactly in concurrence with what's going on back on Royal Heights. So it'll give you an opportunity, because she's contacted me before, and it'll give you an opportunity to maybe pass along some information that would help. So, but I see her back there. She's harmless. She's not threatening looking or anything, but she's back there, and I think she wants to talk to you.
Run, Kevin, run. No, real quick, any word on if we can somehow change this campfire thing? That was the biggest.
What we're going to do is we're going to have our own campfire.
Perfect, that's all I need.
We won't allow individuals to
Yeah,
have
that makes
campfires.
sense.
I talked that with Mr. Mills, and we decided to go ahead and.
Can't go camping with no campfire.
We'll control the fire.
Oh, good. We got a whole department for that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. That went pretty well so far.
Run.
Thank you.
You don't have to run. She'll meet you out there, I think.
Mr. Rajagopal, that concludes our administrative report this evening.
The next for the item trustees report, who wants to go first?
I guess I can if Greg didn't want to go
Greg,
first.
I got mine's quick.
Go ahead.
Well, you didn't skip a beat on that. So a lot of my traditional trustee report goes out through Circle. So if you want to get it faster than waiting once a month to hear it from me, subscribe to Circle. So I would highly recommend you do that. Other than that, just short, sweet, and simple. Everybody that has a kid going out to school, look both ways before you cross the street, right? And I just wish all of our kids heading back to school and parents too a great school year. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
It's a record.
every meeting I try to set a record.
Yeah, I've got a couple things, and I continue to work on this. I have made it through over 1,000 pages of archived minutes at this point. It has taken me 2.5 months, but I was asked to, somebody suggested I look back and look at how we did things in the past, and I would just like to give my fellow trustees my most recent update. And they don't have this until I give it to them at an open meeting, so that at that point it becomes a public document. So that's my update on what I've been working on with my review of archived minutes. I was contacted by a representative of the mayor's office in Cincinnati. They are fine, wonderful people, and they do a lot of great things to send people up to live in a better place called Colerain Township. The mayor contacted me, and he's looking, which is great. Elected officials should be talking to each other. They intend to put a 1% increase in the sales tax on the March 2020 primary ballot for Queen City Metro. And I believe just the other day they put on the ballot for people who vote in Cincinnati this November, and they had to get it in before the filing deadline, a 3% reduction in the earnings tax. If you work in the city of Cincinnati, you have 2.1% of your earnings taken from you, and I think you live in the city, and I work in the city, so they're going to reduce that, or so they say, by 0.3% if this sales tax passes in March. And some of that money will go to improve Metro, which we all have different ideas on how they're performing in their operational direction. They say that Colerain will get road money, but we could only use that money on roads that Queen City Metro buses travel on in the township, which are primarily county roads. So as far as what would that money do for our people that live on streets that are maintained by Colerain Township, which is primarily subdivisions, I think it would do nothing. One of my other questions for the mayor was, I can't imagine that the current city council letting that 0.3% of the earnings tax permanently go away. I just can't see where they wouldn't bring it back immediately. A bus service is great. I mean, it's a great thing to have. Some folks don't want to own cars or can't own cars or use the bus to work downtown or get different places. I think that over the last 5 to 10 years, the Metro's plans don't account for what's been a huge growth in ride sharing and Uber and different things that have come along. And one of the other things is like it or not, the previous city council that were elected by people in the city made a 30-year commitment to the streetcar system, which I've ridden on just to see what it is and how it works. And the city shouldn't be and this is just my opinion, shouldn't be moving on to project after project after project. You may have heard they want to divorce themselves from that. Well, you can't really do that. And the city made an agreement, just like if you take out a mortgage or anything else, they need to fulfill that agreement before they start any new projects, in my humble opinion. There was a question about one of our former employees who has a personal services contract. I don't know how many times we have called her in yet, if at all. But there's some annual reports that need to be filed, and we just have her under contract. We don't pay her if we don't call her in, and she's got a lot of institutional knowledge, and if we need her, we can call her, and if we don't call her, we don't pay her. Last thing, there's been a filing deadline for the upcoming election, and Greg has not filed to run for re-election, and I I sincerely want to thank you for your service to the township, and I'm sure we'll talk about that more later. It's not always a fun job, but I have never met anybody who has been more enthusiastic about Colerain Township than you.
Love this place.
That
Thank
person
you.
does not exist. That said, there are 4 folks that have filed for your seat, so it must be
It's a hot seat, man.
for as much as people, I mean, I hope they know what they're getting themselves
Got a
into.
built-in massager.
And there has been, there's only been one person who has filed for the fiscal officer position, so he will run unopposed. He is out there in the audience. I see him.
there he
If
is.
you would stand, Jeff Baker, you are.
You are our next fiscal officer, so
If you can get one vote in the election, and I don't know if Mrs. Baker will vote for you or not. She told me she wasn't sure, but you will be our next fiscal officer. I hope as time goes by, there's just so much that goes into this, and Heather's always trying to keep up with us, and it's Heather's call, but I hope that you would consider sitting up here. Now, obviously, you're not bonded yet, but there's so much to learn that I hope that you'll be able to attend meetings between now and the end of Heather's term, because I want you to get off to a great start here. And thank you for putting your name out there. Running for office isn't always the funnest thing in the world, but somehow, I don't know what it's like to not have an opposed election. What is that?
It must be nice.
It
That's
must
what it
be
is.
nice. So, so congratulations, Jeff. I guess you'll be our next guy. So that is my trustee report, and thank you for the time, Raj.
Thank you, Dan. My report, I'd like to invite people sitting way in the back, Connie, Melissa, Lori, Mike, that's the wife next to you, right?
Amanda, yes.
Amanda, would you please, all the people now, just come forward, please. I got something to say.
Uh-oh.
Come on, please.
Boy, that's the energy I was hoping for.
Yeah. So all the
You know, they're
people
worn
come
out
forward.
from volunteering, Raj, for goodness sake.
No. The reason I called them out, I witnessed amazing things last Saturday. The Grossbeck Community Picnic. What a turnover. Lots of people there. Melissa initiated this. This is the first time I've seen that the community coming together. You know, they are craving how we can build this community better. And Lori and Connie, Mike, Amanda, they started it in Northbrook. How you can bring anything they can do it. That is, you know, when I went to Grossbeck, Melissa did an outstanding job. For me, that is most wonderful thing to see the community thriving. You know, we need to better this community. That's our responsibilities to help you guys. I just want to thank Lori, Mike, all Grossbeck people started this, and Melissa took her along, and we helped her, and Connie and all. So I want to thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, you know, I appreciate very much.
Thank you guys for volunteering.
For me, that is very critical, that helping our community to build stronger and give what they need, we help them to provide this. That's my report.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Next on the agenda is new business.
Yes, sir. The first item of new business this evening is a motion to authorize the township administrator to sign an agreement with T Northgate Mall LLC for police services. It was presented earlier by Chief Denny. Chief, did you have anything else that you'd like to add?
No, I think the presentation.
Very good. So just to reiterate one more time here, what is before you this evening is an agreement to provide police services at Northgate Mall, which captures 100% of all of the costs associated with the personnel that are there, which does not diminish the number of police officers that are in our community. In fact, to the contrary, it enhances our ability to provide police services in the community by adding an extra officer that is paid for 100% by the Northgate Mall, and provides a source of revenue to the township, which allows us to get equipment without taxing our residents. So the recommendation from staff is wholeheartedly to adopt the motion that would authorize the administrator to sign the agreement.
I motion that we adopt to sign the agreement with T Northgate LLC for police services.
I second the motion. Any discussions?
Yes. I think it's a great benefit to our township to have an officer up there that is funded by the mall, not by us. We talked about the police levy, and I think this will provide a good revenue stream. And as you know from the day I got here, I challenged all the departments to come up with some other idea. I think people are tapped out on the property taxes. Well, they've come up with a better idea, and it's better, and it's going to help us cover the administrative costs of that officer. It gives our officers a chance to increase their family income rather than, rely on their existing salary. If somebody wants to work a little harder and go out and do a little more, it gives them that chance. I think the rate of $64.47 for an officer and $74.07 for a sergeant, I truly believe that covers all of our costs, our retirement fund, our taxes, our uniforms, everything that's rolled into it. If this does not pass, we're still obligated to respond to calls up there. And if we run a call a day, just one, we're pulling a guy out for an hour and a half to go up there and write a report and run the car up there, and he can't be over somewhere else. So I just think it's great to have somebody there that the mall is paying for, and it's not being paid for with tax dollars. In addition, a few months ago, you worked hard and found that grant to study that property and find out what the future of the property could be. I think this puts us in a good pattern to maintain what's there so that grant, which was also not tax dollars, that we can follow a plan through and help to market that property. I do not want, like I said, I don't want another Forest Fair Mall. I don't know how Fairfield and them deal with that. I don't know what the policing arrangement is up there, but Colerain Township's a lot better than that, and I'm wholeheartedly going to support this agreement. And there's one other comment about the less billable calls in the first quarter. That's because the mall officer has a cell phone, and all the shops have it. So when somebody down at one end of the mall has a problem, he calls that cell phone, and our officer's down there in the time it takes him to get down there rather than get in a car and drive up there. And so I intend to wholeheartedly support this.
Okay.
I talked to the commission in Columbus, and they recommended that I don't discuss and to abstain.
Okay. It is hard for me to make a decision on this. I studied, thought about it many times. I met with Chief and Jeff. They gave the presentation to me, what you've seen. It is very hard to make the decision, but my priority is our community, the people. South of Colerain, Northbrook, Grossback, Pleasant Run, West Side. People calling me, we need protections, we need protections. You probably hear something. We have the best police department. I also walked around the malls at least 3 times. Northgate Mall, I went to the Kenwood Mall, I went to the Eastgate Mall, Liberty Centers, everything. How they're policing their malls. But this argument, but Chief did extraordinary work to make the presentation about the Northgate Mall. Why don't we do it for our community presentation? What's the priority for the community? Now, Northgate Mall has a police. We have the police officers working detail on the theater. But yet, after the contract expired, our police officers continued to provide the security to the Northgate Mall. Then I was really disappointed. There was an agreement made with the agreement I didn't know of, that they continued to give the police. The detail, when I was a former deputy, I used to work detail. At the time, the detail money helped a lot. I was paid minimum when I was a deputy sheriff. I didn't make much money. We struggled, but the detail money helped. The detail money helped the police officers to support the family, to support that kids go to college, school, but they continue to get that detail work on the mall. The government should not be in the part of the business to have a contract with the private entity. If officers work, that's fine, but we are not in the contract with, in the position to have the private entity. What happened? I went to Kroger the other day. There's a security there. Tons of people shopping in Kroger, the new Krogers. Then I got to struggle. You know, we have a whole community craving for more security. You know, the more police visibilities, more. I know that detail is going to take, you know, not taking the police officers' work, but they also saying it's a mandatory overtime for the police officers, mandatory overtime. I also understood, they said, you got to sign up for this mandatory overtime. It forces people, but my concern is we belong there, the community. We need. There's a lot of crime happening. We saw, you know, slashing the guy, kidnapping girl, slashing. We see the police, the accidents. A lot of things happening, but we need to be aware of this. So I'm going to vote no for the Northgate Mall.
Raj, I'd like to discuss it a little more before we call for a vote. This is a lot of revenue for the township, and I'm no fan of funding a private entity either, but they have reached out to us and they're willing to pay 105% of the cost. And when we lose that money and we have to turn around and ask for a levy, you know, in a year or two, people are going to think about that, how we walked away from that revenue, and say, have you guys done everything possible to, you know, find money elsewhere, which has been my charge to our department heads the whole time. Find money elsewhere. I do not want to have to go back and ask our homeowners to increase their property taxes. So this is going to cost us nothing. It gives our officers a chance to make nice money out there, which might keep them from coming back and asking for so much at the next contract time. And, you know, with what's gone on, you know, you only have to watch the news to see what happens, as Chief pointed out, in Dayton or anywhere else. That thing in Dayton, there was officers on duty right there, and they neutralized that threat quickly. If something like that happens and we have to send somebody up there, and I don't like to think about things like that, but that's a big piece of property. It's right at the main corner of our you know, Colerain and Springdale, the main intersection in the township, and I would ask you to please reconsider and, you know, give them all a year of this contract, and let's see, you know, stick with our program where we got that grant and where we're trying to do something better up there, and not walk away from the people up there that want a uniformed, on-duty Colerain police officer. If we have an off-duty officer up there working for the mall, he's going to need to call down here, and we're going to need to send somebody up. If that happens 4 times a week, that's going to cost us $400 a week for the next 50 weeks. So, I mean, what's the math on that? $20,000 or whatever? That's just my quick math off the fly.
I won't take any address, please. This is our discussion.
I would just really ask you to reconsider and you know, go with me on this, and it's not going to cost the township anything. If we have to come back in a year or two and ask for a police levy or whatever, and that goes down because people they're done paying. People can't afford anymore. I know our friends over at the school district are asking for a huge increase this year, and that, you know, that people say, well, that's a school district. Yeah, well, to the folks out here that own homes, that's still coming out of their monthly budget. And you've answered my call. Go out and find something that's not tax dollars, and you've done it. And Raj, I will say that I think you've done a lot to get those rates up. Part of the $64 for an officer and $74 for a sergeant, I think that's through your encouragement, and you know what happened last year when we voted on this, and I'm pleased that our township administration has gone out and beat on them a little bit and got them to come up in price. I think this covers it, so I am going to ask you to please reconsider, and when the vote is called, vote yes and go with me on this, and I just can't see a downside to it. As he showed, moving the beat cars around, if we have to be responding to Northgate Mall and we don't have a dedicated on-duty person there, that's going to affect coverage in all other areas of the township. So I'm going to ask you to please go with me on this and vote yes. So that's all I have to say.
I have a couple more things just to underline. We're trying desperately to keep Northgate Mall relevant, right? Retail is changing. We're facing headwinds. We're trying desperately to figure out what configuration of uses on that property will keep it in the center of our minds and our community, of our heart. That's the center of our community. And one of the things that we're trying to do is encourage individuals, developers, to invest in that property. Millions and millions of dollars. We're trying to get them to invest in building residential property there so that we can have people on the ground and make that space lively. If the place is considered unsafe, as we all remember in 2012 before our police went there, people didn't feel comfortable walking into that mall. If people don't feel comfortable from the beginning walking into the mall, how do we convince somebody to put $20 or $40 million into the Sears property? And so from an economic development standpoint, the safety of that mall is really critical. I would just also remind folks that Northgate Mall has been a part of our community, and they are philanthropists. They donate to our fireworks and our events. They are good partners, and we've had a great partnership with them. And that's all secondary to the safety issue. Our community will have one less police officer with a uniform on in it if we vote no on this contract. If we vote yes on this contract, we will have a police officer not only able to respond to a Dayton-like scenario, but also if there's another capstan, heaven forbid, we will immediately have an officer that can spring to action and help. We have other contracts exactly like this with Walmart, like El Paso. It was a Walmart. That's why we have a police officer there. It's real. This is real. This is not, this stuff is happening every other week now. And I just would feel awful if I didn't again stress the importance of having a uniformed police officer at our mall able to respond to these things. I implore you to vote yes.
And it's okay to change your mind.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. All right. Is there any more discussion? I totally agree. There is officers, uniform officers presence there in the mall. They have already agreement, keep that agreement, provide that security, but I just don't want a contract. And that's my thing. And Heather, everyone want to do the roll call, please.
Real quick, I just have to ask, show of hands, is anyone here against this?
What's your question?
If anyone here is against this? Just one? There's one person here against this? Okay. Just curious.
Okay. Let's let the discussion is over. Roll call, please.
Mr. Rinsko?
Abstain.
Mr. Rajagopal?
No.
Yes.
Okay. So what's next on the agenda?
Next item on the agenda is a resolution to approve and enter into an agreement with Huntington Bank and/or Huntington Capital Corporation to finance the lease purchase of 5 2020 Ford Explorer and police interceptors, various police equipment. Recommendation is to adopt the resolution.
I would motion that we adopt the resolution to enter into the agreement with Huntington Bank.
Could I suggest that we take just a 5-minute recess?
Is that
Just to
okay?
maybe let-
What's that?
She wants to know if we should take a recess for 5 minutes. Let's do it right after this, because I already motioned to
Sure.
enter into the agreement with Huntington Bank. Is there a second?
I'll offer a second.
Okay.
It's been motioned and seconded.
Okay, any discussions?
Not from me.
So the board is aware this is,
I got discussion on this. Do you?
okay, well, I would like to read the title of the resolution, please.
Okay,
So you
go
know what
ahead.
you're voting on. Resolution to approve and enter into an agreement with Huntington Bank and/or Huntington Capital Corporation to finance the lease purchase of 5 2020 Ford Explorer, AWD police interceptors, and various police equipment. Okay.
Okay,
So it's on the floor.
okay. And discussions? Okay, Jeff, I got to ask you questions. The last year, we bought a bunch of cars, right? We purchased the cars, police cruisers, at the beginning of the year. Oh, you lease them? You don't buy the car?
We do
It's
not.
cheaper to buy on the state quote. It's very cheaper. On the lease, the state gives a lower quote for the police cars. Is it cheaper to buy the cars instead of leasing them?
It is not.
It's not? Okay. So you thought, in the leasing thing, is a mileage, is there any certain mileage requirements on that?
No,
The max is unlimited mileage?
correct.
Okay. So you found out it's cheaper to lease the police cars than buy the new cars?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, go
It's
ahead.
a lease purchase.
The purchase. Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Inskel?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
And Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Thank you, Board. The next item on the agenda is a motion to accept a monetary donation. Chief Cook.
I'd like to recommend a motion to accept a $50 donation. Request authorization to accept a monetary donation from Ms. Sandra Franksman, 4130 Ascot Court, in appreciation for the fire department's emergency medical services delivery.
I motion that we accept the donation.
I second it. Any discussions?
Would the reason for the donation was just a benevolent feeling, or did we do some work there? Or?
Recipient of our emergency medical services.
Okay, well, tell her we very much appreciate her acknowledgement of the top-quality services that we provide.
Thank you.
We got to vote on it.
Okay.
Mr. Inskel?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Thank you very much, Board.
Next item on the agenda is a motion to accept a donation. Mr. Schwartzoff will present this item.
I'd like to make a motion that recommend the adoption of a motion to accept a donation of $300 from Patricia Woods in memory of Officer Dale Woods to be used for the Mega Land Playground project.
I'll make the motion.
I second. Any discussions?
Thank you for the donation. I know you've done a great job in out finding other ways besides tax dollars to fund our projects. So I appreciate the work that you're doing, as all the other department heads are, of going out and finding these things. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Heather.
Okay. The next one, agenda
Well, is
point.
there a
Okay.
discussion? All
Okay.
right.
Discussions.
Mr. Inskel?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Next item on the agenda is a resolution. There is an item on the agenda called a resolution approving an application for a sidewalk waiver. The recommendation of staff is to disapprove. The recommendation of staff is to vote no on a resolution approving an application for sidewalk waiver at 3330 Compton Road. The applicant has constructed a building and went through a zone change process which requires the construction of sidewalk. In this area in particular, we're talking about Compton Road between Colerain Avenue, very close to the Houston Elementary School. That is a priority area for sidewalks. We would like for there to be sidewalks on the north side there of Compton. And so our recommendation is to not waive the sidewalk requirement and allow the payment into the sidewalk fund, but rather to require the applicant to construct the sidewalk at this location. So the recommendation is a vote of no on a resolution approving sidewalk application for sidewalk waiver.
Why not just not vote? Move it. Why do you have to vote? Can it die for a second?
You could.
Larry, would it be better to have a resolution with nay, nay, nay?
So when you have the opportunity, okay, so when you construct a sidewalk, okay, when you have a zone change, a development that occurs, you're required to have a sidewalk, okay? And so we give people the opportunity to appeal that requirement to the Board of Trustees. And in lieu of constructing the sidewalk themselves, we allow sometimes for people to pay into a sidewalk fund. Examples of this would be instances where we do not want a sidewalk or need a sidewalk in that location. We just went through this with Joseph Road, with Joseph Toyota on Pool Road, where we need a sidewalk on the south side of Pool Road. We don't need a sidewalk on the north side of Pool Road, so we granted a sidewalk waiver. In this instance, our recommendation is to not waive the sidewalk requirement. Instead, keep the zoning as it is and require the construction of the sidewalk. And so the mechanism for doing that, they have a right to appeal that. They're appealing it to you. And the resolution is presented as a resolution approving the application for sidewalk waiver. The recommendation is a vote of no.
Okay.
So you're looking for a motion?
Motion to adopt, or the motion would be a motion to adopt resolution approving application for sidewalk waiver, and the recommendation is a vote of no.
I would motion that we do the thing you just described, if you'd like to read it, the title of it for the minutes. So I will motion for it.
Sure. This is the resolution approving application for sidewalk waiver.
I'll motion for it.
I second it. Discussions?
I think the goal is just to get an occupancy permit, so sooner the better.
Roll call, please.
All right. Mr. Insco?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
No.
Say no. No.
And Mr. Unger?
No.
Thank you, Board. The next item is a resolution to amend the sidewalk plan. With all of the conversation that we've had about sidewalks over the last few weeks and months, we took that opportunity to take a hard look at the cost of constructing sidewalks, and we determined that from the last time that this resolution was considered, the cost of sidewalks has increased. And so in order to keep up with the costs to construct, we recommend approval of a resolution amending the Colerain Township Sidewalk Plan, which would increase the cost per linear foot of sidewalk to $75 per linear foot, which after discussing the matter with our Public Services Department appears to be the cost of concrete and construction of sidewalk at this time. Recommendation is to approve resolution amending Colerain Township Sidewalk Plan.
I motion that we approve the resolution to amend the sidewalk plan.
I second. Any discussions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Insco?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
And Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Thank you, Board. The next item on the agenda is a resolution declaring nuisance and ordering abatement at the following properties: 2547 Adams, 3153 Deschler, 9685 Dunraven, 9705 Dunraven, 3145 Elkhorn, 2832 John Rose, 3082 Libra, 10262 Menominee, 2794 Petabago, 3461 Redskin, 10024 Regency, 3030 Sheldon, 2535 Washington, 9661 Week, 9780 Yuba, as was listed in the resolution declaring nuisance and ordering abatement. Recommendation is to approve.
I motion that we approve such, I motion
You got motion.
for approval.
Okay? I second it. Any discussions?
Not from me.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Insco?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
And Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Very good. The next two items are motions setting public hearings. Recommend the adoption of a motion for a public hearing to be set for a zone map change for zoning case ZA 2019-5 for 2543 Compton Road on September 10th, 2019 at 7 p.m. here in the Colerain Township Trustee Chambers.
I motion that we set that public hearing as described.
I second it. Any discussions?
No.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Insco?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
And Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Very good. The next item is a motion to, is recommending the adoption of a motion to set a public hearing on a major modification and zone map amendment for zoning case ZA 2019-02 for 8944 Colerain Avenue on September 10th, 2019, 7 p.m. here in the Colerain Township Trustee Chambers.
I would motion that we set the public hearing as you have requested.
I second it. Any discussions?
No.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Drensko?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
And Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Thank you, Board. The next item is a resolution reaffirming Colerain Township's partnership with Hamilton County Public Health's We Thrive program. Recommend approval of this resolution. The township's been involved in We Thrive since 2015. During that time, we have developed and implemented an action plan that focused on two pathways: injury prevention and substance use and abuse. Having reviewed the success of our past actions with We Thrive, the steering committee sought to build on those successes and align our We Thrive action plan with the township's strategic plan. The resolution for consideration on this agenda reaffirms our commitment to the partnership with We Thrive and establishes two new pathways: emergency preparedness and social health. It also establishes our goals in our action plan, such as developing a public health plan and bringing online an emergency operations center. Recommendation is to approve a resolution called Resolution Reaffirming Colerain Township Partnership with Hamilton County Public Health's We Thrive program.
I motion that we do such thing.
I second. Any discussions?
No.
It's a great program. It'll benefit the Colerain Township. Okay, roll call, please.
Ms. Drensko?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Next item is a motion authorizing Township Administrator to execute a contract with Abercrombie & Associates for the design of Laura Linda Chicane. At the April 23rd meeting of this year, the Board of Trustees directed staff to solicit quotes for the design of a chicane on Laura Linda Drive. We posted the request for quotes. We received 2 submissions. As we stated earlier, one submission was not responsive to the requested scope. Abercrombie & Associates provided the only quote that was responsive and offered to do the work at a price of $9,300 to design the chicane. This is below the $10,000 cap that I have authority to sign, but because the Board of Trustees made a motion saying that they wanted me to go out and get proposals and then evaluate those proposals, I wanted to present this contract to the board for an up or down vote. I think that, as we discussed earlier, the chicane has demonstrated that it works. This is just the design. We'll then have construction bid documents prepared so that we can bid the work out and find out the true cost.
I motion that we authorize the Township Administrator to execute that contract.
I second. Any discussions?
Yes, I think it is critical to have a stamped set of plans because that puts the liability for anything that could go wrong with it on the architect or engineer, and that's why you want to have stamped plans for these type of projects. And so that's my comment.
Jeff, at this moment, we don't know how much it's going to cost.
Correct.
So you're paying almost what? How much are you paying this?
$9,300.
Huh?
$9,300.
9,300. Okay. Now, we hired the police study consultant. Okay. I think he can do the part of the study because the study done, when the survey done, only 10 houses was in the study, only 10 homes. Okay. And then you get enormous, through the survey, 10 houses, you got what, about 8 houses response. But there are many houses on the street. But the study is, the ramples, the sample, random sampling so small to do the study, to pay this much money, taxpayers' money, to spend on this. I think let the guy who we hired to study, the consultant for the police department, let him do the study on the Laura Linda, let him study the traffic patterns, so let's go from
He's a crime analyst.
Hmm?
He's a crime analyst. He doesn't study traffic patterns. He's a crime analyst.
But he's going to help all this traffic, all the calls and everything. So, I don't know. There seems to be a lot of money you're paying. First of all, isn't an employee, is in the committee, that gentleman serving now?
I'm sorry, I don't follow you.
Abercrombie,
Abercrombie and
Is-
Associates
is
are
the
located in the
committee-
township. They're located in the township.
Is part of the planning committee or somewhere in, serving in a committee?
I don't know who, are you talking about Tom Abercrombie or Craig
The
Abercrombie?
consultant we're gonna
No, he's
hire.
not on a planning commission or a zoning commission. or-
He's not part of employee or anything.
He's not an employee of Colerain Township. No, he owns a engineering services company.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mills, can you clarify for me for the minutes? I understood that this was a contract to design the Chicane, and that the board had already approved the concept of the Chicane, and this is just the design of what they've already approved.
Well, the board actually required me and directed me to go get these quotes and bring them back to you. And so I got the quotes, and I'm bringing them back to you for your consideration. We did a test. It got great amount of people are talking about it all across the region, and it worked. And so this project would be to design the physical structure in the road and provide an engineer's estimate of cost, which would then present another decision point in the future as to whether or not we want to construct it and go out to bid for construction.
Thank you.
And as I said, it's important to have an engineer or an architect put their seal on the plans because they accept the liability for it and the design, and they've got other communities, they've done similar projects, and so I've made a decision how I'm going to vote on it.
Very good.
Okay.
Well then, shall I call the roll?
Roll call, please.
Mr. Driscoll?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
And Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Thank you, Board. The next three items are on the consent agenda. The first is a contract that I signed for the purchase of a postage meter so that we can mail things. The next item is a new hire. Mr. Gary Shepard is recommended that we hire Mr. Shepard as a full-time fleet mechanic in the Department of Fire and Emergency Services. This position is not new. It is to fill a vacant position. We posted the position, interviewed, I believe, 4 candidates, and made a conditional offer of employment. His employment is contingent on the adoption of the consent agenda this evening. And then finally, on the consent agenda is a promotion of Mr. Craig Niehaus to the rank of lieutenant in the Department of Fire and EMS. Mr. Niehaus went through a rigorous assessment process. It's really impressive, and I hope that in the future, Chief will be able to give a presentation on the rigorous process that we put our guys through for promotions. But Mr. Niehaus came out on top of a very competitive assessment center, and in the absence of Captain Darian Edwards, our recommendation is to promote Mr. Niehaus to the position of lieutenant in the fire department. So all of those 3 items are on the consent agenda. They can all be approved with a motion to approve the consent agenda items.
I motion that we approve the consent agenda. Do you, and then there'll be a discussion. I motion that we approve all 3 of those items.
Any discussions?
The pay rate for the full-time fleet mechanic.
Yes, sir. $27.88.
Okay, so please put that in the minutes. I have no other questions.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Driscoll?
Aye. Raj, your microphone's still off.
Okay. Aye.
You're welcome, Dana.
Mr. Driscoll? Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
And Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Okay. Next on the agenda is fiscal office report.
Yes. Let's see, I would like to ask for the board's usual approval of payroll, purchase orders, and receipts.
I would motion that we approve.
A second. Any discussions?
No.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Driscoll?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
And Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Okay.
And also have I'm sorry, something I copied and pasted, didn't paste. I also like to ask for your approval of a liquor permit. This is a new permit for J.L. Johnson Enterprises, Inc. at 06 Pippin Road in Colerain Township. So I asked Chief Denny and Mr. Kaler about this, and neither see the need for a hearing. So if the board agrees, we can move forward then.
So does that require a motion for Larry or?
You don't usually ask for a motion.
I typically don't, no. So if the board agrees, we'll go on.
All right.
Okay.
And I would like to make a motion to.
Can I finish? Or do you want to go
I
ahead?
thought you had another one.
I do, I have one more thing. I'm sorry, I have to grab it because, like I said, it's something technology was not in my favor here. I don't have the right one, and I want to make this. I'm sorry, I had it exactly where I wanted it, and
To those watching at home, the air conditioning is working quite well over the last 30 minutes. I saw our new facility manager out in the lobby through the glass, and that's one of the benefits of hiring an in-house person. He was able to come here and fix it. We're not paying a service call, and I'm looking for great savings out of bringing that in-house. So for those watching at home, it's gotten a lot more comfortable in here in the last half hour, 45 minutes or so.
it's the community center one, was it correct? Okay. There we go. All right. We have several transfers from the general fund into other funds, just for cash flow purposes. So the first one is $108,886.96 from the general fund into 2181, and $325,833.35 from the general fund into 2911. And then into the community center for, that's not correct, 40.
Do you want to go with them one at a time?
No, we can approve them all together. No, there was an additional 1,000. So it's,
Please stand by for technical difficulties.
so, oh, I'm sorry. 1676.75
Just wait, she's almost there.
40.
I want to make another trustee comment, and I'm going to motion for it, hopefully I'm going to grab a second, so.
43750.04. So then we are going, this is for the community center from the general fund into Fund 2912, $45,426.79. Thank you for your indulgence on that one and why something didn't work the way it was
Do you need a
supposed to.
motion to approve those transfers?
Yes, I do.
I motion that we would approve those transfers?
I second it. Any discussions?
No.
Roll call, please. Any discussion?
Mr. Driscoll?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
And Mr. Unger?
Aye.
And finally, I do want to remind everyone that school will be in session, if it isn't already, probably within next week or the week after. So please, just be aware of the little ones. I think a lot of you know I have a first grader and an eighth grader. And, as I tell my little guy, you're short. Cars don't see you. And so I implore the kids to remember, look out for cars. Be aware of your surroundings and look out for cars. And I implore the drivers, watch out for the little guys and little girls. So, and make sure you stop for school buses and make sure you know the rules about 2-lane and 4-lane roads. So, thank you.
Thank you. I would like to make a motion to amend the agenda so that we can have another item for trustees' report. Can I get a second?
Sure, I'll second it to hear what it is.
Any discussions?
No.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Inscoe?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
And Mr. Unger?
Aye. The room got really quiet after the vote on the police contract. I'm not done with it yet. Larry, I'm going to ask you to research if Greg's allowed to vote on that or not, and try to get a written answer, which I don't believe they've cared to provide because whatever reason, they don't want to put things in writing. So I'm going to ask you to find out in writing if he's allowed to vote on that. I don't see a conflict. And then I'm going to ask you to talk to them all and bring that back again at the next meeting. So that is all I have to say. I'd encourage you to say nothing, Greg, because you're abstaining, but I'm not done with it yet. So that's all I have.
Okay. Finish? Okay. All right. The next on the agenda is adjournment, and the meeting is adjourned.
We got a motion. I motion that we would adjourn.
A second? Discussions?
No.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Inscoe?
Aye.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
And the board needs to sign resolutions and minutes before you leave.
Thank you, everyone.
The meeting is adjourned.